Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. For those that are new to my YouTube channel, subscribe immediately to see more content, and also leave a comment down below to suggest more amazing kinds of videos. Bring in part 5 of What If Spider-Man MCU entered Damnchi. Link down in description of the fan fiction This What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 9 Affections Clash. Tiona's eyes widened in surprise. You want to challenge me? She asked incredulously, her voice tinged with a mix of astonishment and admiration. Peter nodded firmly. Yes, if that's what it takes to earn your affection, then I'm willing to face the challenge. Tiona leaned back, a smirk playing on her lips. Well, this just got interesting, she remarked, her tone betraying a hint of amusement. The other patrons of the bar had fallen into a hushed silence, all eyes now fixed on the unexpected turn of events unfolding before them. A dwarf seated at the Loki table, his brown eyes sharp and his long brown hair cascading over his broad shoulders, addressed Peter with a mixture of concern and skepticism. Hey, kid, he began, his voice gruff but not unkind. Challenging an Amazon to a duel isn't something to take lightly. They don't hold back, and trust me, you don't want to be on the receiving end. He glanced around the table, his gaze landing on Peter once more. And what are you, a level 1? He continued, his tone incredulous. She's a level 5, son. You're outmatched in every way. It's like bringing a fork to a dragon fight. A wolf man nearby snorted derisively, his canine features contorted in amusement. If this weakling wants to throw his life away for a hopeless cause, who are we to stop him? He remarked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Let him make a foolhardy attempt at love. It'll be entertaining, at least. Peter observed as Tiona's momentarily hopeful expression dimmed once more, her demeanor mirroring the emotional complexity he had often witnessed in Liz. Steeling his resolve, he addressed her firmly, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. I've made my decision, he declared, his gaze unwavering. I challenge you, Tiona. Do you accept? Tiona's gaze swept over her familia members, weighing her response carefully. The entire bar held its breath, anticipation thick in the air. After a thoughtful pause, she met Peter's gaze squarely and replied, I accept. The entire bar erupted into hushed whispers, a collective murmur of disbelief swirling around Peter. Is he an idiot? One voice murmured. The kid is going to get himself killed, another lamented. Then, a woman's voice chimed in, such a shame, he's a looker, her tone tinged with regret. Loki suddenly announced, it's settled then. The duel will take place in the Twilight Manor tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., Peter noted, observing Loki's enthusiasm. She is definitely excited for this, Peter mused to himself, a hint of dark humor coloring his thoughts, probably looking forward to my gruesome death. Peter nodded to the folks at the Loki table, then returned to his seat at the counter. All eyes seemed glued to him, whispers slithering around the room like gossiping ghosts. Sir wasted no time, launching into her interrogation the moment he sat down. What were you thinking? Do you have any clue who she is? The Hiryut sisters are absolute monsters, more than monsters in fact because they literally tear apart monsters with their bare hands, she exclaimed, her words a warning laced with genuine concern. Peter glanced at Belle, who simply nodded in silent agreement. Mia swooped in with a drink, her expression a mix of sympathy and amusement. On the house. It's been nice knowing you, kid, she quipped. In the background, he swore he heard someone placing bets on his imminent demise, prompting him to shake his head, making Peter wonder if he should be writing his last will and testament instead of sipping a free beverage. After Sir had scurried off and Mia had shuffled to the other end of the counter, Belle leaned in close, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. Why'd you go and challenge her, Peter? His eyes flickered with a mix of fear and admiration, like he was torn between cheering him on and dialing the nearest therapist. Peter's expression mirrored the chaotic swirl of emotions in the room. It's the only way I can date her. She reminded me of my old girlfriends, he confessed, a mix of desperation and determination evident in his tone. Hence, it was a spur-of-the-moment decision. Belle's eyebrows shot up in exaggerated surprise, his eyes widening as if Peter had just revealed a hidden superpower. Girlfriends? How many did you have? He exclaimed, his voice tinged with a mix of disbelief and admiration. Peter chuckled, a nervous edge creeping into his laughter. I had 2, he admitted, his grin faltering slightly. But not both at the same time. Belle's eyes widened, curiosity practically radiating off him. What happened to them? He pressed, leaning in closer as if expecting juicy gossip. Peter's gaze turned distant, lost in memories of supervillains and interdimensional drama. He contemplated silently, recalling how Liz's dad turned out to be a supervillain who tried to kill him. Then, there was the time when things were finally going smoothly with MJ until another supervillain revealed his secret identity to the whole world. And, of course, now MJ was in an entirely different universe with no memory of him whatsoever. Things just didn't work out, he finally sighed, resigning himself to the cosmic forces that seemed intent on meddling with his love life. Loki watched the strange adventurer sitting at the bar, amused by the unfolding spectacle. The gods had descended to the lower world seeking entertainment, and today she was certainly getting her fill. A level 1 challenging a level 5 now, that was the most intriguing thing she had witnessed in this lower realm. One offhand comment the man had made about tales of Thor being widespread in his homeland lingered in her mind. She had been dwelling in this lower realm for 28 years now, yet this was the first time she had heard Thor's name mentioned. It was a curious anomaly, as she wouldn't have been surprised if a god had spoken of him, but this was a mere mortal. The mention of Thor prompted memories of her brother to resurface, casting a shadow over her thoughts. After Janice unwittingly opened the portal, unleashing a horde of monsters upon heaven, Thor emerged as a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. With thunderous resolve, he rallied his fellow gods to stand against the encroaching darkness. Swiftly, he marshaled an army of divine beings, each ready to lay down their immortal lives in defense of their home. With Mjolnir held high, Thor had led the charge, his valorous spirit igniting the hearts of his comrades. Through the swirling vortex of the portal, they ventured, ready to confront the monstrous horde on the other side. Loki had stood firm at the portal's threshold, her gaze fixed upon the swirling maelstrom of interdimensional chaos. Alongside the reserve force of the divine army, she remained vigilant, ready to defend the heavens should Thor's valiant charge fail. As the tumultuous battle raged on the other side, Loki's keen eyes detected the subtle shift in the portal's arcane energies. A surge of hope flickered within her heart as the monstrous tentacles that had wedged the gateway open began to retreat, vanishing back into the abyss from whence they came. With a sense of grim satisfaction, Loki watched as the portal gradually sealed shut, its ethereal tendrils dissolving into the void. The closing of the portal marked not only their victory over the invading horrors but also the bittersweet realization that Thor and his valiant comrades were now forever trapped in the nightmarish realm beyond. As Loki mulled over these reflections, a familiar pang of jealousy toward her brother, Thor, resurfaced within her. While other gods revered and celebrated Thor's strength and valor, she remained relegated to the role of the trickster, the mischievous figure weaving chaos and laughter. Even in Thor's absence, as songs of his valor had echoed through the halls of legend and monuments rose in his honor, Loki couldn't shake the persistent twinge of envy that gnawed at her. Yet, beneath the layers of resentment, there lingered a profound sense of loss for the brother she once knew. Now, as she gazed upon the mortal seated at the bar, Loki found herself pondering. He hadn't lied to her. Perhaps a god who held Thor in high esteem had settled into this mortal's homeland, weaving tales of Thor's exploits across the ages. As Loki drifted into reflections of the past, she scarcely registered the conversations at her table. Bet rambled on about a tomato boy Ice had rescued in the dungeon, but his words barely registered. Then, abruptly, Bet posed a ludicrous question to Ice, drawing Loki's attention. "Ice, who would you choose, him or me?" Ice responded with incredulity. "Are you drunk, Bet?" Undeterred, Bet persisted, asking Ice, "As a female, who would make you wag your tail, him or me?" Loki couldn't tolerate it any longer. "Someone shut him up, he's crossed the line," she ordered. "After all, Ice is mine and only mine," Loki thought to herself. Acting swiftly, Tiona and Tion restrained and gagged Bet, tying him up before he could utter another word. As Loki observed the chaotic scene unfolding, she couldn't resist voicing her curiosity. How can someone with an abnormal resistance development ability be such a light drinker? Her question elicited chuckles from everyone at the table, while the gagged Bet could only glare at them in frustration. Peter observed the scene with a sense of amusement, the laughter of the entire bar echoing around him as they watched the antics of the now tied and gagged wolf man. He turned to Belle, who was still blushing furiously and struggling against his restraints. Unbeknownst to the rest of the bar, Peter had used his webbing magic to immobilize Belle's legs when it seemed like he might try to flee. From the conversation, Peter had quickly deduced that the wolf man, Bet, had been referring to Belle as the tomato boy. After all, How many boys could Ice have rescued from a minotaur yesterday while drenched them in blood? Leaning in, Peter whispered to Belle, "Relax, man. See, he got what he deserved." Belle's eyes welled up with tears as he hissed, "Let me go." Peter maintained his calm demeanor, replying, "Only if you calm down. Where will you run off to anyway?" Belle's voice trembled with emotion as he confessed, "I need to become stronger, so that I can stand beside her." Peter nodded, understanding Belle's determination, but couldn't help but inwardly chuckle at his friend's puppy love. "And how exactly are you going to get stronger at this time of night?" Peter pressed, trying to reason with Belle. But Belle remained silent, his defiance evident in his gaze. Peter sighed, recognizing the familiar stubborn look in Belle's eyes. It was a look he himself had worn countless times before doing something stupid. "Listen, Belle," he began, his tone firm yet sympathetic, "that jerk is a bully. You should never let bullies like him win." He nodded toward the now ridiculed Bet. "Besides, just look at him now. He's the laughing stock of the whole bar." Belle's tense posture relaxed slightly as he glanced around, noticing the bar patron's amusement at Bet's expense. Peter teased Belle, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "So, that blonde girl is Ice, the sword princess, right?" He nudged Belle playfully, "Should I go and ask her about her favorite color and food?" Belle's previous tension and inclination to run away completely changed into panic. "Oh, please don't," he pleaded, his voice laced with desperation. After they finished eating, Mia approached them with the bill, and Peter couldn't help but stifle a chuckle as he watched Belle's eyes widen at the sight of the total. "Looks like Bet's antics weren't the only thing leaving us in shock tonight," Peter remarked, attempting to inject some levity into the situation. Belle nodded in agreement, his gaze still fixed on the bill in disbelief. "I think I'll need a few extra dungeon runs to cover this," he muttered, a hint of resignation coloring his voice. Peter glanced at the bill amount and grinned mischievously. "Nah, Belle, you totally have the money to cover this much. And if you don't, I'll lend you enough ballast to cover it," he said, teasingly. Belle groaned in mock despair, knowing Peter was likely serious about lending him the money if needed. Nearby, Mia couldn't help but smirk at their predicament, clearly amused by their reaction to the bill. As they were leaving, Peter waved to Tiona at the Loki table. She smiled and waved back before being admonished by Tion. Oddly, Ice also waved him goodbye, her expression still as animated as a rock. Peter couldn't help but chuckle inwardly, wondering what Belle saw in that girl. He had seen more expressive sandwiches than her. "You did what?" Hestia's voice thundered through the room, and Peter winced, hoping his eardrums wouldn't burst from the volume. Hestia had returned late in the night, and, as expected, Belle, the tattletale, spilled the beans about everything that had transpired in her absence. "I told you not to attract the attention of other gods," she admonished him. "And what do? You go and challenge a top-tier champion from one of the most prominent familias." As Hestia began muttering, "Maybe you should just go and apologize tomorrow," Peter couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at her escalating distress. "But that plank-chested harlot would never let me live it down if one of my children backed out of a challenge he made," she grumbled. "Relax, I got this. I won't lose," Peter reassured her with a grin. But Hestia's reaction was far from reassuring. She slammed her head into her hands and groaned, "I don't know what worries me more, you losing or you winning. If you win, you do realize that you would be attracting the attention of all the gods in Orario. They'll all try to snatch you away from me." Peter shrugged, trying to lighten the mood. "Well, if I become famous among the gods, maybe I can put in a good word for you with some of them," he joked. But Hestia's look of horror only deepened. "Oh gods, please don't," she groaned, envisioning the chaos that could ensue. As Peter prepared to face his challenge the next day, he couldn't help but wonder if he was getting in over his head. But then again, what's an adventure without a little risk? Peter and Belle approached the Twilight Manor, the residence of the Loki familia. Hestia had expressed a desire to accompany them, but she ultimately decided against it, citing the unwritten rules of godly etiquette. Gods weren't supposed to intrude on the domains of other gods uninvited, especially if they weren't on friendly terms. Besides, Hestia had mentioned that Loki was an old rival of hers, and she didn't want to stir up any unnecessary trouble. Peter teased Belle about finally meeting Ice in her home, nudging him playfully. "You should talk to her, thank her for saving your life," Peter suggested with a grin. Belle blushed, stammering, "I'm too weak to even stand beside her." Peter shook his head, his tone firm yet lighthearted. Everyone seems to think I'm too weak for Tiona. But the heart wants what the heart wants. And I'll definitely chase after what my heart desires. Life's too short for delays. Belle looked at him with a mixture of admiration and doubt. But what if you fail? He asked hesitantly. Peter shrugged, a mischievous glint in his eye. So what, I'll try again, he declared confidently. Belle seemed to consider this for a moment before Peter continued. Tell you what, if I win, you have to talk to Ice Wallenstein. Belle raised an eyebrow, his expression skeptical. And if you lose? He inquired cautiously. Peter chuckled, flashing a grin. Then you'll probably have to carry me to the nearest hospital, he quipped, earning a laugh from Belle. Peter chuckled at Belle's unexpected response. Wait, you know what a hospital is? He asked, genuinely surprised. He had expected Belle to be confused by the term. Belle nodded, his expression earnest. Yes, the Dian sect Familia runs a hospital in Orario. Am I not supposed to know what a hospital is? He replied, a hint of confusion in his voice. No, it's just, never mind, he said. Peter shook his head, marveling at the quirks of this medieval world. As they neared the imposing front gate of the manor, Peter's thoughts were interrupted by the sight of two adventurers in gleaming armor standing guard. Top of form. One of them scrutinized Peter's integrated suit with a critical eye before gruffly asking, state your business. The other, with a smirk playing on his lips, chimed in, looks like we've got the one who's dared to challenge, the Crusher. He chuckled, his tone laced with amusement, that fancy armor won't do you much good, kid. She'll crush it like a tin can. As they entered, one of the guards led them through the vast expanse of the Twilight Manor, a sprawling structure erected on a modest plot of land. Towering structures intertwined and supported one another, their heights culminating in the grandeur of the central tower, which loomed above the rest. Guided into a spacious courtyard, Peter and Belle were met with the sight of various adventurers engaged in vigorous sparring sessions. Some wielded weapons against each other with practiced precision, while others unleashed bursts of elemental magic, leaving singed marks on nearby target dummies. In the light of the morning sun, the courtyard was bathed in natural light, casting long shadows across the training ground. In the heart of the courtyard, Tiona and Tione engaged in a lightning-fast duel, their movements blurring with speed and skill. Peter, watching from the sidelines, felt a knot of unease tighten in his stomach. He had severely underestimated his opponent. Their rapid, fluid motions and raw speed were nearly impossible to track. His apprehension only grew when Tione, with a predatory grin, paused mid-strike, her gaze locking onto Peter and Belle. With a dramatic flair, she announced their arrival to the assembled crowd, her voice cutting through the air like a whip. Look who's decided to grace us with his presence, she declared, her tone dripping with mockery. The lovesick idiot has arrived. Immediately, curious onlookers began to converge, forming a ring around the courtyard. Even the balconies overlooking the scene began to fill up with spectators, drawn by the anticipation of the impending showdown. Loki, Finn, the dwarf, the tall beautiful elf, Ice Wallenstein, Bet, and the other members present in the hostess last night all arrived, their eyes fixed on the unfolding spectacle in the courtyard. Loki, her eyes glinting mischievously, strolled forward, her presence commanding attention. Well, she drawled, her voice dripping with amusement. It seems we have ourselves quite the spectacle today. Peter exchanged a wary glance with Belle, who appeared to shrink under the weight of the attention. Taking a deep breath, Peter stepped forward, his resolve firm. Let's just get this over with, he muttered under his breath, steeling himself for the challenge ahead. Finn stepped forward, his demeanor serious as he addressed the crowd. All right, listen up, everyone, he began, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the onlookers. Here are the rules for today's duel. Firstly, Finn continued, raising his voice to ensure everyone could hear, this will be a fair and honorable contest. No interference from anyone, got it? He cast a pointed glance around the courtyard, ensuring his words resonated with the spectators. Secondly, Finn declared, his voice carrying authority as he addressed the gathered crowd, the duel will be fought until one of the combatants admits defeat or is rendered unable to continue. No killing blows, understood? As Finn spoke, his gaze flicked pointedly toward Tiona, emphasizing the importance of restraint in the heat of battle. Tiona met his eyes with a determined nod, silently acknowledging the gravity of his words. Lastly, Finn concluded, his tone stern, the duel will be immediately halted if I deem it necessary. I will intervene if I observe either participant crossing the line or endangering the other's safety. He cast a pointed glance at Tiona, who shuffled sheepishly under his scrutiny. Peter mused that at least Finn seemed interested in preventing him from meeting an early demise. Or perhaps he simply didn't want his familia's reputation tarnished by the killing of a rookie. He then addressed both combatants. "You may choose your weapons," Finn declared. Tiona chimed in immediately, "Unarmed combat." Peter nodded in agreement. Finn gestured for everyone to step back, creating space in the courtyard as they all positioned themselves at the edges. In the center, Finn stood between the combatants, ready to officiate the duel. "Begin," he declared, his voice echoing through the courtyard. As Finn's command echoed, Tiona sprang into action with lightning speed, her movements a blur as she closed the distance between them in an instant. Peter's senses heightened, his spider sense alerting him to the impending danger just in time. With a graceful sidestep, he narrowly evaded Tiona's first strike, feeling the rush of wind as her fist whizzed past him. Reacting swiftly, Peter countered with a series of agile dodges and calculated maneuvers, using his enhanced reflexes and agility to stay one step ahead. Tiona pressed on relentlessly, her attacks coming fast and fierce, each blow carrying the weight of her formidable strength. Despite her overwhelming speed and power, Peter remained focused, relying on his spider sense to guide him through the flurry of strikes. With each evasion, he studied Tiona's movements, searching for an opening to exploit. Suddenly, he saw his chance. As Tiona launched another lightning-fast attack, Peter anticipated her trajectory and swiftly ducked beneath her arm, narrowly avoiding her strike. Using her momentum against her, he spun around and delivered a well-placed kick to her side, sending her staggering backward. The courtyard erupted into murmurs and gasps as spectators watched the unexpected turn of events. Tiona's recovery was swift, her expression now a mixture of surprise and determination. Suddenly, she blurred forward with increased speed, catching Peter off guard. It became evident that she had been holding back. Peter's spider sense screamed a warning as he barely dodged her lightning-fast punch, but the sheer force of her missed blow created a shockwave that sent a few spectators stumbling. Before he could fully process what had happened, Tiona unleashed a devastating kick that struck him squarely in the gut. The impact lifted Peter off his feet, propelling him into the air with alarming force. As he soared at least 30 feet upward, his acrobatic instincts took over, and he spun midair to face the rapidly approaching wall. With a quick twist, he managed to stick to the wall at the second-floor balcony level, clinging with all four of his limbs. Taking a moment to assess his situation, Peter realized the gravity of the situation. That blow would have been fatal for a normal human, and he suspected he had sustained internal injuries. Determination surged within him as he glanced around, searching for a way to turn the tide of the battle. Spotting several light poles projecting from the courtyard walls, Peter wasted no time. With a powerful leap, he vaulted off the balcony and landed gracefully on one of the poles, his sticky feet allowing him to maintain his balance effortlessly. With a smirk, Peter raised his hand in a mocking gesture, signaling Tiona to come at him. Falling for the taunt, Tiona launched herself forward, her feet leaving deep cracks in the ground as she surged toward him like a missile. But Peter was ready, his mind already formulating a plan. As Tiona closed in, Peter used his unnatural agility to dodge her, hanging upside down from the pole with ease. With lightning reflexes, he deployed his web shooter, catching her legs in a sticky trap and attaching the other end of the web to the pole. The web became taut, halting Tiona's momentum, while Peter gracefully descended to the ground. Left dangling upside down, Tiona wore a surprised expression as Peter wasted no time. With precision, he rapidly spun a cocoon of web around her, binding her limbs tightly. Despite her struggles, Tiona found herself ensnared in Peter's webbing, the layers of silk quickly encasing her. Noticing that his webs were beginning to strain under Tiona's strength, Peter acted swiftly, adding more layers around her while deftly circling her. In no time, Tiona was transformed into a cocoon, her head the only part left exposed as she hung upside down, thoroughly ensnared by Peter's web. As Tiona struggled against her sticky prison, Finn approached her, his expression mirroring the astonishment of the spectators. "Can you break free?" he inquired, his voice tinged with disbelief. "No, I can't," Tiona admitted, frustration evident in her voice. "What kind of magic is this?" Peter refrained from correcting her misconception. The webs he used in the fight were not magical but rather his chemical ones. He doubted his magical webs could hold her, they were not as strong as the ones produced from his web shooters. But he knew he would run out of web cartridges pretty soon if he kept using them like this. Just as Finn was about to declare the winner, he realized he didn't even know the rookie's name. Leaning in, he whispered, "Kid, what's your name?" After receiving the answer, Finn loudly announced, "The winner is Peter Parker." The courtyard fell into a stunned silence, everyone too surprised to react. Suddenly, Tiona broke the silence with a mischievous smile. "Well, don't just stand there," she quipped, "give me a kiss." Peter, caught off guard by her unexpected request, hesitated for a moment before stepping forward to oblige her. Indeed, with her face conveniently hanging upside down, it was the perfect height for him to plant a kiss on her lips. Chapter 10 Ripples of Victory. As Peter leaned in to meet Tiona's lips, the world around him seemed to slow, the rush of the duel still echoing in his ears. With her face hanging upside down, their lips met in an unexpected yet oddly perfect moment. The thrill of victory mingled with the warmth of her kiss, sending a jolt of excitement coursing through him. With Tiona still suspended in the air, Peter swiftly retrieved his web-dissolving spray, releasing her with a deft application. As the webbing dissolved away, he moved with precision to catch her. With practiced ease, he supported her weight, ensuring she landed safely on her feet. Finn, ever the fair and impartial observer, approached Peter with a congratulatory pat on the back. "Well done, Peter," he commended, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "You fought with remarkable skill and determination. I must say, I'm thoroughly impressed." However, Tiona, never one to mince words, wasted no time in voicing her protest. "He cheated," she accused, her tone sharp with indignation. "Using magic during unarmed combat is against the rules." Finn, unruffled by Tiona's outburst, shook his head with a knowing smile. "Using magic wasn't explicitly forbidden according to the rules I set," he clarified, his tone firm yet diplomatic. Peter played within the bounds of the rules, and he emerged victorious fair and square. Bet, the gruff wolf man whose initial skepticism had turned to reluctant respect, approached Peter with an unexpected nod of approval. "Not bad, kid," he grunted, his gravelly voice carrying a note of genuine admiration. Beside him, the dwarf offered a solemn nod of approval, acknowledging Peter's feat with a hint of solemnity. Meanwhile, the tall, beautiful elf regarded him with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity, her piercing gaze betraying her intrigue. As for the rest of the Loki familia, they gawked at him in utter disbelief, their expressions oscillating between shock and bewilderment. Bell seemed to have lost all sense of composure, his jaw practically making acquaintances with the ground as he stared wide-eyed at Peter, resembling a startled rabbit caught in the headlights. Ice approached Peter with a hint of curiosity in her expression. For the first time, her doll-like visage seemed to crack, revealing a glimmer of genuine emotion. "How are you this strong?" she inquired, her voice soft yet tinged with curiosity and a hint of hope, her eyes betraying a newfound interest. Loki suddenly jumped into the conversation. "Yes, indeed," she chimed in, her voice laced with intrigue. "How is it that a level 1 rookie like you possesses such remarkable strength and skill?" Her words were polite, but there was an unmistakable undercurrent of curiosity and perhaps even a hint of scheming, her eyes glittering with hidden motives. Peter squirmed uncomfortably, his hand absent-mindedly scratching the back of his head. "Well, you see," he began, his words stumbling over each other, "it's sort of a family secret, you know. Can't just spill all the beans, right?" He flashed a nervous smile, hoping his feeble excuse would pass muster before swiftly shifting gears. With the goddess's ability to detect lies, Peter knew he had to guard his secret about being from a different dimension at all costs. Eager to divert attention from his awkward explanation, Peter turned his gaze to Tiona, his voice a touch unsteady. Tiona, would you maybe want to go out for dinner with me tonight?" he mumbled, as he attempted to change the subject. Tiona beamed, her enthusiasm evident. "Of course, I'd love to," she exclaimed, her smile brightening the room. But before Peter could fully bask in his triumph, Loki's voice cut through the air like a sharp blade. "Hold it right there," Loki interjected, her tone dripping with mischief. "I'm not quite finished with you yet. A familia secret, you say? Pray tell, which familia do you hail from?" Peter gulped, feeling the weight of Loki's scrutiny. Hestia familia," he hesitantly confessed. Loki's expression twisted into one of disbelief mixed with irritation. "The lowly big boobs familia," she exclaimed incredulously, her annoyance palpable. "How in the world did someone like her manage to recruit someone like you?" Peter squirmed uncomfortably under Loki's intense gaze, feeling like a rabbit cornered by a hungry wolf. He hadn't expected such a strong reaction, especially not from the goddess of the Familia whose member he had just challenged. He mentally kicked himself for forgetting about the whole Hestia-Loki rivalry thing. Desperate to steer the conversation away from his awkward slip-up, Peter clapped a hand on Belle's shoulder, practically dragging him into the spotlight. Belle introduced me to Hestia. I joined her Familia thanks to him, he blurted out, hoping to shift the focus. But Loki remained fixated on him, undeterred. Now, Belle, didn't you have something to say to Ice Wallenstein? Peter prodded, hoping to divert Loki's attention elsewhere. It worked, albeit with unintended consequences. Loki's glare shifted from Peter to Belle, her eyes practically shooting daggers. And just what do you have to say to my precious Ice, she demanded, her tone dripping with suspicion. Meanwhile, Ice stood nearby, her expression as unreadable as ever, looking like a living, breathing mannequin. Peter couldn't help but chuckle inwardly at the sight. As the tension mounted, Peter's gaze landed on a young elf girl in the corner, her eyes practically shooting fire at Belle. He couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for his friend, who was squirming like a rabbit caught in a trap under Peter's firm grip. Amusement danced across the faces of the onlookers as they watched Belle squirm under Peter's sticky grip, like a fish desperately trying to wriggle free from a net. Bet, always one for cutting remarks, couldn't resist adding fuel to the fire. Come on, weakling, spit it out already. We haven't got all day, he jeered, earning a sharp glare from Tiona. Belle's struggle against Peter's hold intensified, his face turning as red as a ripe tomato. Finally, with all eyes on him, he blurted out his thanks to Ice in a rush of words. Thank you for, saving my sorry ass from that Minotaur, Miss Wallenstein. And, sorry for running away back then, he managed, his words tumbling out in a jumble. Bet couldn't help but burst into laughter at Belle's nervousness. Holy shit, this is the tomato boy, he exclaimed between guffaws, earning him a swift karate chop to the back of the head from Tiona. Ow, he yelped, rubbing the sore spot with a sheepish grin. Meanwhile, Ice tilted her head slightly before responding. I apologize as well, she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of regret. The Minotaurs were our responsibility. They shouldn't have reached the upper floors, let alone put you in danger on the 5th floor. Loki suddenly sported a mischievous grin, slinging her arm around Belle's shoulder and yanking him away from Peter's grip. So, Ice saved your life, huh? She remarked, her voice dripping with intrigue. Do you know how you could pay her back? Belle's eyes widened in panic. How? He stammered nervously. Loki's grin widened as she leaned in closer. Ace here would like to know how Peter is so strong, she whispered, her tone playful yet ominous. Belle's heart raced as he struggled to find an answer. I can't say, he mumbled, his voice trembling. It's a Familia secret. He looked on the verge of tears. Loki let out an exaggerated pout. She cooed, mocking his distress. Ace, tell him how much you want to know the reason behind Peter's strength. Ice regarded Belle with genuine curiosity. Please tell me, she asked, her tone gentle yet insistent. How is Peter this strong at level 1? Belle's face flushed crimson as he stumbled over his words. Well, you see, Peter is, blessed by a spirit, he blurted out, his embarrassment evident in every syllable. Peter couldn't help but wonder how Belle got that idea in the first place. Then, like a light bulb flickering to life, he recalled Belle asking Jane something similar in the dungeon yesterday. Jane had joked, Peter always has my blessing. Maybe being blessed by a spirit was indeed a thing in this world. Well, it could work to my advantage, Peter mused silently. At least it's a good excuse to hide the fact that I'm a super-powered being from another dimension. He couldn't help but smirk at the absurdity of it all. Peter shook his head at Belle's apparent inability to keep secrets. It seemed that all it took was a pretty face for him to start babbling everything. Reflecting on Hestia's wisdom in concealing Belle's skill, he conceded, at least Belle genuinely believes in his blessing from Jane. He couldn't help but speculate, so perhaps Loki, the walking lie detector, might have bought into it as well. Grabbing Belle by the arm, Peter interjected, well, it's been a blast, folks, but we really should get going. Turning to Tiona, he added with a grin, I'll come to pick you up at 8 tonight. Then, with a quick, see you later, everyone, Peter swiftly ushered Belle out the door, determined to prevent any more slip-ups, like Belle accidentally spilling the beans about Jane. As they headed towards the snack stand where Hestia worked, following her earlier instructions to deliver news after the duel, Peter couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, like someone was eyeing him with a predatory gaze. This sensation had lingered since they neared Twilight Manor. Glancing around, Peter noticed Belle's uneasy expression. "You feel it too, like someone in watching us?" Belle's question confirmed Peter's suspicions. Immediately, the intensity of the gaze lessened, though it remained present, albeit subdued. "Yeah, I've been sensing it since yesterday," Peter admitted. Belle echoed his sentiment, noting the current mildness of the sensation. With a nod of understanding, Peter turned to Belle, his expression now serious and stern. "Seriously, man, why'd you have to spill the beans back there?" he questioned, his disappointment evident. "You were about to tell them about Jane next." Belle's apologetic gaze met Peter's, his contrition evident. "I'm sorry, Peter," he mumbled, realizing the gravity of his mistake. "Apologies aren't sufficient, Belle," Peter asserted, his tone unwavering. "We must exercise greater caution from now on. Every action we take carries weight, and a single misstep could put everything at risk." Peter paused, feeling a twinge of hypocrisy given his recent daring duel with one of Orario's top adventurers. Despite this inner conflict, he knew the importance of instilling in Belle the significance of discretion. Continuing their walk, Peter maintained a serious demeanor, emphasizing the gravity of the situation as he lectured Belle about the importance of discretion and the potential consequences of revealing sensitive information. As Peter and Belle approached Hestia's snack stand, they noticed her attending to a line of customers, her expression etched with worry. However, as soon as she spotted them, her demeanor shifted, and she shouted out, "I need a break." With that, she hurried out to intercept them, leaving her customers momentarily confused. Suddenly, her overweight boss bellowed from behind the counter, "You can't take breaks whenever you want. We have a business to run here. Get back here right now." His voice reverberated through the street, filled with annoyance and authority. Ignoring her boss's demands, Hestia stood her ground, her eyes flashing with determination. With a swift motion, she flipped him the bird and declared, "I quit." Her boss continued to bellow obscenities, his tirade growing more colorful by the second as she walked away, head held high. Peter couldn't help but be taken aback by her brazen reaction, but deep down, he felt a sense of satisfaction that she finally quit that wretched job. Peter grinned at Hestia. "Congratulations on quitting your job, goddess," he said sincerely. Hestia beamed in response. "It's all thanks to you too," she replied happily. "Giving me a third of your earnings is the reason I could quit that awful job. It wasn't the work itself, but my boss. Who does he think he is, ordering around a goddess? But enough about me." Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Tell me about the duel. How did it go? Did you win?" she exclaimed, practically bouncing on her toes with anticipation. Peter's grin widened at her enthusiasm. "Oh, you bet I did," he replied with a wink, his tone brimming with pride. "I won the duel, but it was a close call. Tiona put up quite a fight." Hestia's eyes widened in astonishment. "You won? You actually defeated a level 5? She gasped, disbelief written across her face. "That's incredible." "Yeah, I had underestimated the power of a level 5, Peter admitted, scratching the back of his head sheepishly. "But I managed to pull through somehow. I can't wait to rub it in Flatchest's face," Hestia added with a mischievous glint in her eyes, earning a surprised chuckle from Peter. "You've really made me proud." She then pulled Peter into a tight hug, her excitement overflowing. Hestia then said with a hint of worry while still hugging him tightly, "I hope the news doesn't spread too much. The other gods will try to snatch you away from me if they find out you're this strong." Peter hugged her back, though he had to lean down quite a bit, and patted her comfortingly. "Don't worry, goddess, no one will be taking me away from you." After chatting a bit about the duel, Hestia asked with slight embarrassment, "I know you gave me the Valis for familia expenses, but is it all right if I buy a dress with them? I was invited to a party tomorrow being held exclusively for the gods, and I don't have anything proper to wear to such an event." Belle exclaimed, "Of course, you can buy a dress with that money, goddess. You can do whatever you please with it." Hestia beamed. Peter cleared his throat to offer clarification, "While that money is for familia expenses, as our goddess, your attire should reflect our status. It's crucial to present Hestia Familia as prosperous and respectable. How about this, goddess? You go window shopping for a dress while we venture into the dungeon. We'll certainly earn more Valis today, and we'll use them to gift you the perfect dress." Belle enthusiastically added, "Absolutely. Consider the dress yours. Just pick out the one you love, and we'll make sure it's yours by tonight." Hestia hugged them both gratefully, though they had to bend down to accommodate her embrace. Freya frowned as she peered into her mirror, her gaze fixed on Peter and Belle ever since their arrival at the Twilight Manor. Excitement had bubbled within her since yesterday when, disguised as Sir, she had witnessed Peter challenging Tiona, the Crusher, to a duel. Yet, beneath her anticipation, jealousy simmered as she watched Peter seemingly court another woman. With amazement, she observed Peter's victory over a level 5 opponent. She had never anticipated such power from a level 1. Squinting, she attempted to discern the intricate patterns of his soul, a swirling vortex of crimson hues with delicate white patterns resembling a spider's web. The web seemed to extend into unseen realms, captivating her gaze. Peter's soul was the most unique and mesmerizing one she had ever seen. However, her scrutiny was abruptly interrupted as both Peter and Belle appeared to sense her soul gaze. Still, Freya persisted in her observation as they made their way to Hestia. She couldn't help but be surprised that the petite goddess had managed to secure such remarkable individuals as her own. Jealousy gnawed at her heart as she witnessed Hestia's affectionate embrace of Peter. Moments later, her envy reached a boiling point as Hestia hugged both of her destined lovers, their reciprocal affection for the diminutive goddess laid bare. With a surge of frustration, Freya hurled her wine glass at the mirror, shattering it into pieces. She realized she needed to separate both of them from Hestia before she could claim them as her own. If she forcibly stole them from Hestia, they would resent her and become even more attracted to Hestia. From experience, she knew that if she charmed them, their souls would eventually lose their unique shine and become dull and monotonous like her other children who had become mere slaves to her charm. That was why she had stopped living at her familiar home, Folkvanger, to prevent her charm from tainting the souls of her children. So far, only Ottar seemed to be marginally immune to her charm. Freya devised a cunning plan. She needed another god to steal Belle and Peter from Hestia first. Many gods would eagerly go to war over a level 1 adventurer who could defeat a level 5. Fortunately, most of these gods treated their children as possessions to hoard rather than individuals. Freya knew Belle and Peter would become miserable in the hands of such gods. So, she would wait for the opportune moment to swoop in and rescue them, gaining their gratitude and affection. Freya called out to Ottar, her trusted servant. "Ottar, I have a task for you." Ottar, a towering presence with unruly rust-colored hair and eyes that mirrored the same fiery hue, stepped forward obediently at Freya's command. Adorning his head were a pair of distinctive boar ears, further emphasizing his unique appearance. Despite his imposing stature, there was a palpable sense of obedience and devotion in his demeanor as he responded to Freya's call. "Yes, my goddess," he inquired respectfully, his tone reflecting his unwavering loyalty. Freya's eyes gleamed with determination as she issued her instructions. "Instruct our familia members to spread this across every corner of Orario. Let every tavern, every pub, every shop frequented by adventurers and gods know of the remarkable feat achieved by a level 1 rookie from the Hestia familia. Make sure they hear about Peter's victory over the level 5 feat crusher, Tiona Hiryut of the Loki familia." Ottar nodded solemnly, his loyalty unwavering. "It will be done as you command, my goddess," he affirmed before departing to carry out her wishes. Freya's grin widened as she poured herself a fresh glass of wine, relishing the moment with a sense of certainty that her plans were swiftly falling into place. And this is the end of part 5 of this amazing crossover, What If? Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe.